Beat time.
Hey everybody, Parting Boys here, back for another vlog. Usually my vlogs are about some kind of experience that I've had or some kind of thought that I've had. It's about me somehow, but this particular time I wanted to take a step back and look at something that I've learned in this last semester of college, something that I found interesting and something that I think you might find useful. So here it goes. Generation Z. This past semester I've studied in length Generation Z and the theories surrounding Generation Z. Now you may be asking yourself, what is Generation Z? Generation Z is the generation currently being born. Other than that, scholars can't really decide on what Generation Z is. They can't decide when they were born, what formative events are forming their lives. They can't really decide on what they will be like. They can't decide what their thought processes will be, and they can't really decide on anything. But as far as I can tell, and as far as the theories go, there are some patterns that seem pretty solid that I feel comfortable presenting to all of you. First of all, Generation Z is most likely the generation that starts being born in 2002. Well, no child born after 9/11 is going to remember 9/11. Now, while it has shaped us as a nation, and while it does still ring true in our textbooks and our history books, and while they may still be able to watch it on video even, they'll never remember it ever happening. People will ask, where were you when the World Trade Center collapsed? And they will say, I didn't exist. And so it won't be that meaningful to them. And so that's something that we'll have to remember going into the future, that this is something that these kids don't remember. And it's not going to be as powerful to them as it is to us. But that being said, there's another thing about being born in 2002 that makes them very different than us. They have spent most of their lives knowing that the president is black. That has never ever happened in all of American history. For the first time in American history, we have a black president. And interestingly, about Generation Z, they will be the last white majority in our nation. That's right. The generation after Generation Z will not be a white majority anymore. America will truly be a melting pot. And so it's going to be hard for us to make the transition of being a very white dominant society to being so ethnically diverse. It's going to be a jump start into a very different culture. What they're going to view the world as is something very different than what we see. We do see skin color, as much as we hate to admit it. But for them, they will truly not know racism nearly to the extent that we do. They will see each person as a person, despite their skin tone. They will see every person as a person. And they will definitely be enforcers of equality in our society, something that I think we can look forward to. This is going to be a lot different, not just being the last white majority, but being the greatest enforcers of equality in our nation's history. Think about that for a second. They are the last white majority with the first black president who has been president for most of their lives. Now, if that doesn't point to screaming for equality, I don't know what does. These kids, this next generation, this people, are going to see the world very differently than us. They are going to be screaming for social equality, and they are going to want to enforce it heavily. We will see racism almost abolished. While it will never be fully driven out of our society, it will definitely be a taboo in this next generation. I think that's something we can look forward to, a generation that loves equality and strives to be a people of equality and unity. I think it will definitely help in whatever challenges they face, whether they be social or economic or terroristic or whatever. They will not hesitate to draw on others to come to their aid. And that brings me to my next point about Generation Z. They will definitely be a generation of workers. A generation that sees the entire world in front of them through social media. I mean, think about it. What generation can see the world more holistically than they can? They have grown up in a world where Facebook has always existed, where YouTube has always existed, and where you can talk to one another and paint an image of something in 140 characters or less. They see the entire world, and they see it in a way that we haven't. While we, as a generation, my generation, has sat back, looked at the world, and now that we've finally seen the world, we just ask a lot of questions about it. The next generation is going to be tired of asking questions. They're going to want to do something. And many researchers believe that this is why they will have such a strong work ethic. To see the world in need as it is, and to not do anything, seems a little bit crazy. And so, it only makes sense that these people have a strong work ethic, wanting to change the world, even a little at a time. You'll definitely see a rise in humanitarian acts, and you'll probably see a rise in the medical field, as well as any kind of humanitarian occupations. These people will want to be people who help other people. They won't just live in technology the way that some people seem to paint them. We're not raising a generation that is addicted to technology. We're raising a generation that wants to help people. And I think that it's important that we recognize that. Before we start condemning the next generation for being glued to their phones and their TVs, let's take a step back and realize that this is the portal through which they view the rest of the world. Now, we do have to keep in mind that those might be biased, and we may want to control, to some extent, the bias that they read, just to make sure that they're not becoming too heavy-handed in one particular bias or another. But as long as they see the world for what it is, broken and in need, but willing to change, I think that they will be a people who change the world for the better. Now, the other thing I have to admit about Generation Z is that, yes, the media is going to be a lot different as well. They're going to be raised in a generation where most movies are PG-13 or R. And they're going to be raised in a generation where violence and sex and crude humor is the norm. So they are going to be very desensitized. So I came up with a name based on all of these features of Generation Z that I think should stick. In America, we call the last letter of the Latin alphabet Z, but in other parts of the world, the last letter of the alphabet is called Z. Now, most of us know that term as being those who are undead, zombies. I think that's a good description of this generation. They see what needs to be done, and they will mindlessly pursue it until it is done. They're desensitized. They don't really care about what the rest of the world looks like. They want to do what needs to be done. And so, I think it's only appropriate that we call them Generation Z. That's what I have about Generation Z. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. If you have kids that were born after 2002, you should definitely look into Generation Z, the theories behind it, things like that. But I hope this particular video is useful to you and that you can use it as a little bit of a backboard into pursuing and helping the next generation. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you had any comments or questions, leave them in the comments. And if you really enjoyed it and want to see more of this stuff, click the subscribe button if I can ever talk. And I'll love to hear from you. Thank you so much. Enjoy. Have a good day.